All right. So, welcome on in to Roundtable number 5. I'm excited for this conversation today because today we're going to be tapping into why the matriarchy might be necessary first. And this, by the end of this whole conversation, it's going to be hopefully much more clear to you about why we're trying to suggest the matriarchy in the first place, but also why we think it might be necessary to at least start this new revolution that we're looking at here. Just a few disclaimers real quick before we tap in with Shannon, who's going to open us up with a nice sound healing or prayer. I don't know what she has planned for today, but just want to remind everyone that we are not here to argue with each other. We are here to imagine possibilities together. The whole point of this is to help build a new vision for the future. Because a lot of times if we don't know what we want for the future, it's really hard to get there. So that's the main purpose of what we're doing here. Today's conversation may challenge assumptions that you have from every direction, and that's okay because your growth will often start when your clarity or your certainty ends, right? It's when you are finally in that weird, uncomfortable spot that you might actually receive more of that clarity. So we're opening that up for you guys here today as well. Shannon, whenever you're ready, we could get going with that.
Actually, I'm gonna move inside because I was like, "Ooh, I'll be outside today," but they just started with a jackhammer. Can you hear that?
Oh, fun.
Yeah. Yeah,
all right,
we're gonna.
I'll give you a couple
that.
more minutes before we do
with
that.
me inside for a moment. Yeah, we're just gonna walk back into my office because
Jackhammer's Friday.
Yeah, I had no idea that there was so much construction outside. I was like, oh, it's a lovely day. I'd love to have the natural environment here. But we're going to avoid that.
I've got my door and windows open, so we might hear some interesting noises. But for the most part, it's pretty quiet, just birds.
Well, that's not the case here. So here we are journeying in through the building where I work.
Hi guys, welcome on in. You can come on in. We're about to get started here. I'm going to expand you, Shannon. Give you a minute.
All right, there we go. Ooh, okay. Thanks for taking a walk with me, everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Now I'm somewhat settled. Okay. So, yeah, let's actually just start by taking a nice deep breath. Hand on your heart, close your eyes if that's available to you. And as we're present in this energy of Sagittarius full moon, being mindful of the element of fire, the way that fire ignites within us awareness, passion, purpose, pleasure, playfulness. As you are connecting with your own element of fire, may it burn away all that no longer serves you. And may it illuminate the things that need to be seen. May you have the courage to see those things and allow yourself to be present with paradox and the awareness that two things can be simultaneously true. And in holding the awareness of truth, allowing ourselves to step back and observe as the observer so that we can make choices and move forward from a place of anchored presence rather than reactivity. Taking a breath in and just opening our hearts and minds for whatever words come through in this space. Grateful to all of you for being here and whatever it is that comes through in this space. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
And so it is. All right, let's flip me back in here. There we go. I'm getting the hang of it.
Yeah.
All right. Now, this is the question that nobody really wants to talk about, but what if the reason things like egalitarianism keeps failing is because we're trying to build it with people who were never taught how to live it? Right? That's kind of where we're at right now, because the patriarchy has been around for so long that literally none of us, at least here in the United States for certain, have ever experienced a matriarchy. So we don't necessarily know what it feels like. We also need to pay attention to the kind of minor details of the situation as well, right? So, does society currently reward cooperation or competition? Are children learning community or individual survival? What values are we unconsciously passing on? And this is a good point, I'd say, for us to open up this conversation. Right away, do you guys have any thoughts that came to mind with either those questions or just the opening segment here of what we're discussing today?
I'm deep in my master's thesis, and I am reflecting on a study. And ideally, I have this fantasy of taking a group of children and spending a school year in the wilderness, no screens, and doing comparative brain analysis from one year to the other. But the study that I'm reflecting on right now is they put girls and boys in separate homes and left them unsupervised for a 48-hour period of time, knowing that they were like videotaping this, right? So it's not that they were unsafe. Mm-hmm. And had all the supplies were there, everything was needed. And the boys spiraled into chaos and disorder and got into fights, and the girls completely reorganized the house into more efficient systems and created like little tiny like pods of, like almost like little groups of like, these are our skill sets and you're going to be in charge of this and you're going to be in charge of this, right? And this is our natural order. So when it's wired in our brains to be in those systems, I think that it's worthwhile. As you said, we've never had this as a system of functionality, so we don't have anything to compare it to in our lived reality. So how do we go about initiating that with courage from a place of just allowing instinct and these ways of being to kind of emerge within the broken systems? Mm-hmm. That's what came to mind as you were saying all of that.
Yeah, I agree. Jules, do you have anything to add? I'll expand myself while you talk.
Hopefully you can understand me with my voice being all shot.
Good.
Good. I would say the natives have experienced that. We as Westerners certainly haven't. And I don't want to, brush over that it has existed on this continent, still does. And there are people here that we can learn from. But I'm so not surprised about that study where the boys descended in chaos. That made me laugh.
Yeah, agreed. And I think no matter what culture it is, right, every culture teaches itself into its existence, right? So children are not born patriarchal. If anything, I would say that by nature, children are matriarchal because their entire existence typically revolves around the mother. But children absorb whatever system is surrounding them. And as they grow older, then the reality eventually sets in that mother is not the center of the society as a whole. But in the beginning, I think that that's something that's very natural. That's why here we interchange the words matriarchy with the natural order. because it's just natural how it's supposed to flow, right? So children who are born into a matriarchy in the sense that their mother, they are the centerpiece of that mother until they are grown and out of the house, or even longer, as I hear from lots of older mothers as well, is that the mothering never ends, right? Like they turn 18, it doesn't mean you're not their mom anymore. My mom recently sent me this meme. It was really cute, but it was talking about how um, even though I have older children, I still want my 25-year-old to come and take the toilet paper out of my bathroom, and the 40-year-old to come over if I'm cooking the meal she loves or whatever, you know? So it's really about this mindset of always being that for those around you. But I think it's also important that we break down what each of these teach us, right? So what does the patriarchy teach? There's an important distinction here. This is not about individual men. I want to make sure we point this out in like right off the bat. This is about cultural programming. So when we say patriarchy, it's interesting because there's a lot of men that get knotted up about it because they think we're saying death to men, which is not at all what we're saying. Patriarchy is a cultural programming that we are saying that is what needs to end. It's not a man-hating, man-bashing thing. It's a recognition that, again, back to what Shannon was saying, the natural order is the women will be the ones organizing things if you just allow it to happen. The women know how to do it. The problem is we've been living in a society for so long that the men have assumed that position, that it's their responsibility. And we see what's happened to our world thus far because of that. So what are the values that are most rewarded in a patriarchal system? Any one of you can pop in with any ideas you have. What is rewarded in patriarchal systems? I would say...
Sorry, you got a little jumbled there. My feed is doing weird.
That's okay. I'd say competition is one of them. That's one of the values. You have to be a competitor. You have to be able to be one up, be better than the next person. Otherwise, you won't get noticed. Status, I would say, is another patriarchal system or a value that's valued in the patriarchal system. Domination, hierarchy, productivity over relationship, and control, obviously. Is there any more that you guys want to add?
Conquest, achievement, dominance seems to be a big thing.
Yeah. Now, where do you see these showing up in...
I think...
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was just adding to that list, like individuation versus community, right? The individual conquest versus collectively, like, thriving.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And this keeps cutting out. I don't know, maybe if I leave and then jump back in. I don't know what's going on. It keeps being choppy.
If you feel like you need to, you can go for it.
It's a big
I'm gonna
to
try that.
piggyback off of what Shannon said. I think that's also a very American
Be right back.
thing. Our whole identity is built around the individual and individual rights, and there's not a lot of emphasis put on community and what you contribute to the community.
Yeah, I agree. And we see these showing up in daily life in multiple places, right? It's kind of all over. We see it in the workplace, in school, in politics, obviously, religion, obviously, but family structures as well, right? Like this, it's, I would call it like I would call it a toxic poison that seeps into every aspect of your life, because of it being this umbrella spirit or power or principality, if you will. It has that ability to seep into every aspect of our lives. Now, the issue isn't that people are bad. The issue is that we have spent generations teaching this dominance as if it were normal when it's not, right? So again, I've been doing a lot of this with my content this past few months, honestly, at this point, but just trying to help you guys to grasp the concept of nuance, because it's so important, especially in conversations like these. The hurt, the pain, all of it is very real, which means it's also very triggering. So if we're not being in our awareness in these conversations, that's usually what ends up happening is someone will take it personally, think that we're attacking men when we're not. What we're actually saying is that if we're all being taught this domination since we were a young child, this is probably going to take quite a bit longer for us to come out of that. And everything we're discussing right now is all going to tie back together at the end of why I think the matriarchy or the natural order is necessary. Now, what does the matriarchy or a matrifocal culture teach? And this is going to contrast a lot what we just discussed about the patriarchy. If a culture centered itself, what would children learn? Cooperation, stewardship of the land, of each other, of your community, emotional intelligence, community responsibility, long-term thinking, and conflict resolution. All of these things are so necessary. And I feel like because we've been in a patriarchy for so long that we just forget, or they get tossed aside because they just, it doesn't fit in the programming that they want you to follow. So just give me one sec, because I don't know if Shannon was trying to get back in here. Maybe she had to restart her phone. I'm not sure. Shannon, if you're in here, send a DM or send a thing, and I'll send you another invite. Do you have anything there, Jules, you'd like to add about what a matrifocal culture teaches?
I would say it focuses more on community-centered values rather than centered values, financial values. We were talking about the way the family is set up, and it's only been really in our lifetime that women have achieved like full financial independence. I think it was like 1993 when we could apply for, it was a credit card or something, I can't remember. And flipping that to thinking about what a rising tide lifts all boats rather than one boat trying to make it across the finish line.
Right.
I'm sorry, I think I'm only going to be able to speak in spurts because my voice goes out.
You're fine. You're fine. Thank you for showing up at all today. This is where you stop people from hearing that women are in charge forever, right? Like we're not even saying that necessarily, or at least I'm not. What I'm saying is, what if matriarchy isn't necessarily the destination, it is the rehabilitation? I want you to sit with that for a sec. Because this is kind of my main thesis behind this, is I don't necessarily believe that the final destination is matriarchy, and here's why. I believe that the final destination is balance. But if a society has been trained into hierarchy for generations, then perhaps balance cannot emerge immediately. So what I always think about, like I think this is my Roman Empire, is how amazing it would be if we were able to, for at least 2 to 3, maybe 4 generations, start with a matriarchy. Because by then, the children that were born at the beginning of this matrifocal community are then being raised to understand all of those things that we just discussed, right? The emotional intelligence, community responsibility, long-term thinking, conflict resolution, cooperation, stewardship. All of those things are much easier to mold in a child as they grow older to then have it be incorporated into their life. So by the time that those first generation of children in the matriarchy are now 3 generations in, they're going to be the next leaders. And these will be men, these will be women. But the issue is that right now, the men and women who are stepping into leadership positions don't understand these things yet. But if we had a matriarchy for at least a few generations, I think it would eventually evolve into an egalitarian situation, or, for lack of a better term, just a balanced world, a more balanced world. Do you guys have anything to add there? Any opinions, ideas, questions?
I would posit that it actually only takes one generation.
Mm,
Because once that generation grows and teaches the others, they're already going to be more egalitarian, and those I values will seep into the system naturally.
yeah, yeah, I agree. Shannon?
I think that on a surface level, it might take a generation, but when we look at things like race, we're generations out from that, kind of shift out of, if we think even back as far as when slavery was abolished, that pervasive hierarchy mentality is still present in the human story. So the decentralization of those, I don't even know. I feel like it's ingrained in our nervous systems on some level. There's so many layers and complexities and nuances to it, but I think that it comes down to individual human beings really getting very brutally honest with what it takes to care for one's own body. And then when you start valuing and honoring your own body, you cannot help but value and honor everyone else's, right? So if I know I need shelter, food, a community, and all these things, and these are my base level for survival, how could I ever deny another human being access to those things? And that base level empathy, I think, yes, can show up in generation one, but there's still deeply ingrained privilege, and that needs to there's like a trial by learning in the moment that will have to emerge from that.
Yeah. And I tend to say a few generations myself, because if a child has never been modeled cooperation before, I don't know how else they would learn it. If they've never experienced community, I don't think they would know how to create it. And if a child has never witnessed healthy leadership, then they won't know how to embody it. So the issue is that first generation, that first wave, if you will, are coming from you and me, right? The women and men living now, having to still deal with all of the traumas and issues that we've had to deal with in our lifetime. So we're still learning as we teach that first generation, right? Like, because we don't know either. We've never been in a situation where women are healthy leaders and it's matrifocal, meaning the children are centered. We don't even know what that looks like. But as the first generation continues to grow, the next one picks up new ideas. And we see this happening now in the patriarchy, but just in the wrong direction, I would say, right? Like, every generation that's born now knows how to do things 10 times faster than we did. It's kind of that same idea, right? So yeah, I think that matrifocal would have to be the focus for the first few generations, but just long enough to teach what has been forgotten, right? And then this goes back to what Jules said in the beginning. I didn't mean to overlook the indigenous Native American population here, but they are an amazing example. So that might even have to include at some point, right? And it's tough because it's a two-way street. Not only us asking, but they would also have to invite us to be able to sit with them and learn from them, right? It would have to be a cooperation from all of us to get to that place of reverence, respect, understanding, and then basically taking ourselves back to school, so to speak, to where we learn what these, how to do it, right? How to do it, how to structure your society, how to take care of situation A, B, and C, because there are many different nuances even in this conversation. All right, so here's some questions for you guys. What skills do you think are currently missing in our society? And if it's the ones that we mentioned already, that's fine too. But if there's any other skill that you think is missing from our society. Another question, I'm just going to throw all these questions out and you answer whichever ones you feel like. What would children gain from a stronger community structure? What happens when emotional intelligence becomes a cultural expectation instead of a personal hobby? And what would leadership look like if it emerged through service instead of domination? If anything there stood out to you, feel free to give me your 2 cents on it.
I mean, the main thing that I think we're lacking is in skill set is empathy. Empathy and emotional intelligence. I think that's gone by the wayside in favor of a lot of these patriarchal values. You know, I don't care how you feel, I'm gonna step on you to get to the top, and those
Right.
kinds of things. And I think just that, increasing that emotional intelligence and empathy would naturally evolve to what we're talking about, you know, makes it easier for people to see.
Yeah, I agree. Shannon?
I'm gonna say emotional and nervous system regulation and the ability to be authentic. And I see this especially in children, and you can see it in any systems. We cannot, if we cannot live in our own authenticity, that means we're compromising and self-sacrificing. Because we live in I'm going to pair always capitalism and patriarchy, because we live in money-driven systems. So the number of times a human being has to self-sacrifice in favor of being able to pay their bills, having to keep up status quo, not being able to speak out about something because X, Y, Z. So every time we compromise our authenticity, we're actually sacrificing a part of our own being. And in that nervous system regulated, emotionally regulated state, you couldn't or wouldn't be out of your authenticity. So then there comes this courage level where you're not, I don't even want to use the word people pleasing, but like bowing down to societal norms, because you have to stand. Your moral integrity is the driving force of your ship. And these are all things that are completely shattered in the dynamic of childhood. And I say this as somebody who works in education. I've been in education for over 30 years. Children cannot be authentic because they're expected to sit and be subservient. And from that, we now see the emergence of things like ADHD and behavior issues because they have to self-sacrifice so much to comply. So in that base level that we're setting up human beings to be inauthentic, dysregulated, and compliant to broken systems, we set every year at graduation. I'm a little heartbroken when I see the faces sometimes of these 18-year-olds who are dauntedly overwhelmed at the idea that they now have to be adults in this world, and we have not given them the skills to be able to do that. They're terrified, and they don't have the resources to kind of get on their own 2 feet, especially in the capitalist system right now. So those 3 markers, the ability to be authentic, emotionally, and nervous system regulated, are like baseline of how we have to move forward.
Well, and I think it also goes back to what you had originally said in one of our other lives about the word itself, community.
Yeah.
How it means,
Come,
I want to make sure I don't say it. Yeah, I want to make sure I don't say it wrong. But come and unity, like it's about the community. Literally means coming together around something shared. The opposite of community is not disagreement; it is actually isolation, and that's what we're seeing right now. A lot of is isolation. So if you're disagreeing with somebody within your community, that's okay. That's actually a good thing. We tend to polish each other's gems when we are allowing ourselves to be open and vulnerable enough in a situation like that for others to speak into your life. And again, it goes back to the bigger conversation about nuance and about being able to hold the emotional intelligence to sit with something long enough without it being triggering to you, without you wanting it to, overly compensate for it because, you're trying to remove yourself from it as much as you can. When in reality, when these types of conversations happen within your community or whatever, it's meant to bring you closer. And to form a deeper bond of that community. So what would you say are the common goals that still unite us? I'll leave that open to both of you guys as well. What have we lost by becoming disconnected from one another? And which goals do you think are still uniting us right now?
Survival.
Yeah.
I think like at the core, the drive to survive is what pushes people through, even despite the direness of whatever situations we find ourselves in. And I think, we can look back to 2020 and the chaos of all that transpired during everything that happened in that time. And in that, like our core human, the core of our own humanity got really jumbled right there. But, what kept people firm in their beliefs and their, whatever that is the will to survive. Mm-hmm. And, if that's the only thread holding us right now, that is very unfortunate. And yet, having just got bit by a tick last week and had a 2-day fever where I was like, oh, this is it, I'm out. But the will to survive pushed me through that fever, pushed me through the insanity of those crazy fever dreams. And, there is a saying that you can live for 30 days without food. You can live for 7 days without water. You can only live a minute without hope. Mm. And so that our will to survive and the whatever fraction or fragments of hope that we have for better ways than this are what I think are what we have shared.
Yeah. What about you, Jules?
I would say that the other thing that COVID era kind of taught us, especially for those of us that were here on social media, is that we still have a deep longing for community and human connection, right? Like that's why TikTok blew up, is because we were all getting on these apps because we were isolated, and we had all of these wonderful moments of people playing music on their balconies and things like that. That's still a basic human thing. And all of this division and tribalism that we kind of devolve into is sort of the toxic manifestation of that, right? As we're trying to find that place, we're trying to find that belonging because our society isn't centered on those values, and we don't know how. we don't know how to reach for it sometimes, but the desire to reach is still there.
Yeah. And it's good to ask yourself too. I mean, I don't expect an answer from this, but it's good to process this question in your mind. But what would happen if neighbors, families, communities became active again instead of as a collective of strangers, right? And then it goes back to what you guys are talking about. Like 2020 was a really good version or example of that. And it's interesting because you can see it and you want to pull that goodness out of it. But it's interesting to me that the only way that we got there was having to all collectively go through something together that we were not ready for, right? But it shows a beautiful example of that it is possible. And it's funny, our conversations tend to always go back to the 2020 era. Like, here's some great examples of things that, we love to see that we haven't seen since then, but we did see it then. So now we at least have the example of it.
Mhm.
And real quick, Tony, I'll be opening it up for you guys here in just a few minutes, but we're just going to get through this next little bit here. So matriarchy isn't fundamentally about women. It is about relationships. Relationships between people, between generations, between the land, between masculine and feminine, and individuals and community. All of this is what the matriarchy is truly about. And again, we interchange that word here with the natural order, because I truly believe that this is how it was always intended to be, how it always was before the patriarchy was introduced. And I think that if we could get back to that somehow, hopefully it's not going to take another huge issue like 2020 was for us, but I think that that's what we're trying to shoot for here, is the understanding that once the natural order is redefined, then everything will naturally come into harmony with itself. It will all start to take care of itself, so to speak. The problem is within a patriarchy, it's going against the natural order. So you're constantly having to fight and struggle and do mental gymnastics just to make things make sense in a patriarchy, just to make it make sense that, women are not doing A, B, and C. The men are, even though the women should be the ones doing it, or vice versa, or whatever, right? So I think that if children grow up learning cooperation, emotional intelligence, stewardship, and responsibility for their community, then boys become men capable of healthy leadership. Girls become women capable of healthy leadership. And eventually something beautiful happens. The culture will no longer require a matriarchy because balance has now become the normal. So that's why I personally believe that the matriarchy is absolutely necessary for the first at least few generations, because that is what is going to help. I don't want to use the word manipulate, because that's not it, but that is what's going to help shape the future that we're all looking for. Even a lot of men saying they just want things balanced. That's what women want too. But in order to get there, I think that we are going to need to listen to the women for the next few generations. So I'm going to open the floor now to questions and answers. If you guys have anything to add as well to that last bit, Shannon or Jules, let me know. I'll put you up.
I feel like I'm in a unique position to talk about this for a little bit because I just came back from my family reunion, and my mother's side of my family is very matriarchal, matrilineal. And I was thinking about that while I was watching everything go down, because we have this land that we have to take care of. That's the former Comanche land. We were friends with the Comanche back in the day, and I'm sure we picked up some of this. But I also am sure that some of it happened naturally because we descend from these three daughters. And what has happened is, we have this family bank account that we have to maintain to take care of the land. And so we have a business meeting where the family votes on who takes positions of like president and secretary and treasurer. And we all sit together under this big pavilion and talk about, the business that has come up in the last year and the business that still needs to be tended to. And those who have money contribute, those who don't contribute labor. And it's both men and women that end up elected to these positions, but it is often the women that do a lot of the organizational work that keeps the family together and keeps them focused on certain values. And I got to see an example of how the men take on what you were just talking about, because I had one of my younger cousins, he's in his 20s, and has just, gotten financially stable and bought a house and all of this. And he knew just through the grapevine that I had been laid off at the beginning of this year. And he followed me to my truck and was like, how are you doing? What's going on over there? Are you okay? I just want you to know I have a house. Like, if you need someplace to stay, you could come, and he's this young man just taking it upon himself to make sure that I'm okay. Mm-hmm. And those things happen naturally in my family. Like, I know I could lose everything and I will not be homeless. There's going to be somebody that's going to step up to take care of me. I'm going to have some place to go. We can, there were 75 people down there this year. Sometimes there's 200. And one of the things that we all joke about is nobody has to really watch their own kid. Like, you can set your kid down and just let them run around. Somebody's going to pick them up. Somebody's going to have eyes on them. They run around so free and nobody has to worry about it. It's such a natural state to be in. And then a little jarring when you come back from that into society and it's like the rest of it doesn't work that way. And that may be where my optimism about, it only takes a generation to get that way, because my family has been this way my entire life. We're on our 7th generation now, and it's been this way pretty much since the beginning. And I think that just unfolded so naturally.
Yeah, I agree. My family is very similar in that way as well. So I think, and I agree with you. I think that those of us who have had some type of experience with the matriarchy in that sense, we are more hopeful for it, because we're like, but we see it though. We know it works. It happens all the time in our family. So I think we're really the hidden weapon, if you will, for this, because we're the ones holding on to that hope, even though many people might not be.
Totally.
Shannon, did you want to add something?
Works.
Oh, I'm sorry, what?
Yeah,
I was just agreeing. I've seen it. It works. It works every year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have the opposite family dynamic. I come from a very patriarchal, very militant, very male-dominated family. I have 3 younger brothers, and it was very competitive growing up, very individualistic. We're not a nurturing family unit by any stretch of the imagination. I absolutely, if I could tap out from, Thanksgiving until February, because I find the holidays so excruciating because of the toxicity of my family dynamic. So, that's my lens of perspective, in the awareness that it's very like, there's no sense of generational wealth in the, I want to help you and make sure that you are set up to succeed in the future. Like, I moved out when I was 17, no help at all from my parents. I've been putting myself through everything. And if anything happens where I get in a fix and I have to borrow money or something like that, it comes with a lot of anger and angst and strings attached, versus, when you said that the meme that your mom sent you, I want you to come over and get toilet paper. Never. There's no way that ever would have happened in my family dynamic. It was very much, oh, well, you fucked up. You didn't set yourself up for success. And so there is an actual, we're going to not only let you drown, but we're going to watch you and yell at you because you let yourself drown in the interim. And right. I see that mindset in many layers of society. And, in the hindsight, my dad is almost 80 years old, and he's one of the most miserable people that I know, because he did not invest in, emotional intelligence. He was very like, this is how it's supposed to be, and that's that. So, I fantasize about living in a supportive family structure. What does that feel like? I've been on my own for 15 years. What's it like to have someone else help pay the bills I have no concept of that. So,
yeah. And I would agree with you. And here's, again, let's talk about the nuance of it, but we're similar in that way as well. So while I did have the emotional support, maybe from my siblings or my aunts, the financial was never really there, because they never had it to give. It was kind of one of those situations where it's like, man, I feel for you. Good luck with that, though. Like, I wish that they would be able to be like, oh, I got you. Here's $1,000 to hold you over till next rent, or whatever. But typically, that's been me. I've been that role for a lot of my family. So yeah, I mean, it is definitely a nuanced conversation for sure. Tony, you're here now. Hello, dear. So Tony is one of the gentlemen that I have asked to join our lives every once in a while when he has the chance to share his perspective, because again, we are not here to man hate and to bash men. That's not our that's not our vibe here. We actually want to see balance restored. We want to see connection restored. So with that being said, Tony, if there's anything that you wanted to pop in and say, or if you had a question, give me 1 second. Go ahead if you're listening. And you gotta back it out. Okay?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just not turning my camera on because I'm not going to let you give me the big window.
Okay.
What do you think of them apples? Not doing it this
Fine.
time. I love the conversation. You know, I spent a lot of time in a lot of different circles trying to navigate this greater question of what does a healthy society look like? And, you know, I'm a hippie, a musician, an artist, and I've been in a lot of smoky rooms of what ifs, you know, what if society was like this and what could it be like? And then I was a political science major. And so again, less smoky rooms, but still the same sentiments. What does this look like? Can it be institutionalized? What does that even look like? Is it even possible? So it's just an endless list of questions. And so I've really been on this greater quest of like, what does this look like when it alchemizes? Like when this actually strikes the ground and humans start to move in this way, what does that look like? And because I think everyone, at least from what I've gathered here today, everyone in this room knows that there's an infinite amount of ways to the society we're talking about here. It can manifest in a multitudes upon multitudes upon multitudes of ways. And so there really isn't one scaffold. There isn't one blueprint that's going to get us there. There are so many blueprints in so many different ways, depending on age groups and cultures, access to finances, access to community, and so many things. So, but that all being said, I have found that the surefire way to start constructing a blueprint that works for you and your family and your community is language. It's communication. Every single thing that we talk about is communication, but the ideas we're looking to manifest into the world also heavily relies on communication. How do you keep that community together? How do you keep that family healthy, even through their trials and tribulations and disagreements? It all boils down to communication, people feeling seen, heard, respected, instead of just demanding that from their so-called opponent. And I do believe that localism, community building, and restructuring our idea of what family is the immediate goal. Like all of the other lofty ideas and end game conversations we want to have are great, and I'm here for it, and I'll always be there to have those smoke-filled room conversations, you know. But I do believe that it is imperative that we start to put these roots down where we are, because another sentiment that I'm picking up is like, well, I never had family like that. I never had this feeling that someone was going to be there to catch me no matter what. So I had to fortify myself. I had to become an island unto myself with my own resources and my own tools to get me out of harm's way and to keep me surviving. And those folks are going to be harder to reach because, let's face it, there's a degree of distrust when someone shows up in their life to be like, hey, you know what? I got you. I got your back. They're like, okay, we'll see. We'll see about that.
Yeah.
They're a big talker. And so I think showing up for one another and actually being the receipt, male, female, men, like no matter which side of this great sea change that we're in, I think it's going to be up to all of us to learn the language of who we're speaking to, which is why I'm in this room today. It's like, I just want to listen. I want to hear the words you're using to describe not only the world you'd rather live in, but, you know, your relationship to it, its relationship to you. But what words are you using to describe this? Because I want to use those words so that you feel me when I say, I got your back. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And then so that's between men and women, Christians, atheists, Republicans and Democrats, left and right. Like it's between all these great chasms. I think it's language that is the bridge. I think if we learn one another's language and we learn to describe the world we'd rather live in using their language, they might be more apt to start to hear our language and to see how, although we all may have different words for water or God or the sun or the dirt, we are all referencing the same things, even though the things we utter to describe them and to represent them may be different. And so I think this really all boils down to a fundamental want to connect, but then through that want, we need to have a desire to learn the language of the person we're trying to connect with, so that maybe these ideas will alchemize and manifest into our 3D world, and not just live on university textbook pages and podcasts and TED Talks and things like that. Where these lofty societal changes tend to live, which is unfortunate. But I think if we want to see them in the real world, we need to alchemize it through our actions and be that change, be the connector, be the bridge builder, be the language learner, and the great unifier of languages and concepts. I think we can all play a role in that. That's my input.
Yeah, and that's definitely what we teach here as well. Is it's important to put the ego aside, and that's kind of I would say the toughest part, because your ego isn't bad. It's not a horrible thing. You're supposed to have an ego, but when you recognize that your ego is getting hurt or injured because someone said something to you the wrong way, that's a moment for you to learn as well, right? It's both sides working on the communication. So one person might have the best intentions in the world, but they say it a wrong way. That's now your job to make sure you're translating that thing that they said in a way that isn't all of a sudden making that person the enemy, but recognizing the skeleton behind what's actually being said, right? And then vice versa, the same thing is true as well. Like if you have something to say to somebody, put the ego aside long enough to know that the end goal is not for them to agree with you, but for you to be heard in a way that they do comprehend and understand. So if you're coming at them in this, angry, point the finger at you type of way, yeah, the natural defense is going to put the hands up and say, no, like I'm not listening to this. So it is a responsibility on both sides of the speaker and the listener, right? And I think as well, that's going to be probably the main starting point, like you're saying, like you said, the immediate. I don't know the right words you use there, but you said the immediate something.
Next
it
step.
Is the immediate step. So the immediate step is that, and I agree. But if we backtrack 2 more steps, we recognize that comes from the unhealed trauma of each person, right? It goes back to that ego. It goes back to, well, is my ego a healthy one or is it an unhealthy one? Is it one that allows me to talk to other people and not take offense? Or is it one that I still need to sit with and work with on my own before I ever try to go out and do that? Because the issue that I think we face, obviously, we all have explained this in our own ways, but the world itself, the patriarchy itself, is not set up to support people being vulnerable with their emotions, being vulnerable with their opinions, sharing it openly, within a safety net, so to speak, knowing that it's going to be received and not in the way that you don't mean it, right? Especially on social media, whatever, you get a video that goes viral, that's 1 million views on one video, that's 1 million different points of view as well. So, it does take a certain thick skin, kind of little bunny trail to do what we do here, because you do have to account for that. But if you're not someone that's doing what we're doing, you're not used to that kind of energy, then it's important to make sure that we're setting that time aside in our own lives, whether that be seeking it out through counseling, therapy, or even just within yourself, like healing that ego enough to be a safe place for others, as well as creating a safe space for yourself too. Because it's also equally healing to be able to verbalize the things that are on your heart. So if a lot of people right now don't feel in a safe environment to do that, then that's, there's a huge nuance there about where the fault lies, right? And there's no one answer to that. I think that it's multiple answers. The fault lies in the patriarchy community itself and how it's established itself and not allowing certain things, but it also relies on you doing the inner work as well. Shannon, did you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I feel like the core of any division that we face in any layer of any of societal systems is the division point is when one person no longer feels safe. And the paradox of that, as I said at the beginning, we're living in a great paradox right now. And two things are simultaneously going to be true, even though they may be opposing. And so we have to kind of step out of black and white thinking. But in the opposite and or the way to move through that feeling of unsafeness is to take a risk. And this happens in any time when we're creating something new. There is a risk factor involved there in that we don't have a guarantee that it will succeed, and we do it anyway. Mm-hmm. We do it afraid. We do it unsupported. We do it without any expectation of reciprocity because we know it's the right thing that needs to be done. Mm-hmm. So the emergence of the...
Oh no. She'll be back, I'm sure. But I agree so far, of course, with everything she was saying. Can you guys hear me still?
Loud and clear.
I can hear you.
Okay, cool. Jules, did you want to add anything as well until she comes back?
Yeah, I'll piggyback a little bit off of what Tony was talking about in the language and the sense of family and thing. I'm a nerdy supernatural fan, so I'm a big believer in that whole family doesn't end in blood thing. And I think we need a shift in perspective of who our family actually is, especially in America. And maybe some of this comes from the fact that I have such a diverse family, but I see America as a big family. And, I may not agree with what you're saying or what your political beliefs are or whatever, but I care about what you're saying because you care about it and because you're passionate about it. And I want to see your needs met because you are a member of my American family. And I feel like we've lost this sense of belonging to the village. And we're so concerned about scarcity and who's got more and who, they're trying to take this and that we have enough. We have more than enough to make sure that everybody is well taken care of, but we don't have that perspective shift in wanting to see them taken care of because we don't feel like they belong to us. We all belong to each other. Mm-hmm. And I feel like we're modeling that in this live right now. Like I would say all of you are family. If any one of you hit hard times, I would care. I would show up. And I think we can all agree that we would do. That's it. It's not, I don't think it's that complicated. I think it just comes down to that.
Yep. I agree completely. So real quick as well, it is now 11. We've been going for about an hour. If you guys are okay to stay a little bit longer, I will open it up. If anybody else wants to come in and ask a question, just send me an invite. And we'll probably just do that for the next 10 minutes or so, if that's okay with you guys.
Yeah,
I'm down.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, we got another 10 minutes. Yeah, so if anybody wants to send me an invite, you can hop on here, ask questions, or share your opinion. We are here to listen. But while we wait for that, Tony, I would love to get your opinion on what you think about the matriarchy versus patriarchy. I know you make videos about this, but I know that you also have your soundbite pretty much ready to go. I would love to hear what you feel when we say the word matriarchy / natural order.
My grandmother was the head honcho. Like everything deferred to grandma. And I grew up in a very connected family. And now that she's gone, you can feel the effects of her absence. And so when you say matriarchy, when you say it, you and your pals here, our pals now, and Jules, of course, I've known you for a while. I know what you mean. And I know the connective, supportive existence that you're talking about. I've lived it. I appreciate it. But I also know, just like I stated in my little monologue earlier, that language is everything. And I just know that there are certain words, like when I have friends on the left who talk to me about the means of production and Marxism and all these things, I'm like, no matter how valid your points may be, when you say this word, it's cursed. It's cursed. Maybe not to you. Maybe to you, it's, and to use, keep with the vernacular, it's blessed. And maybe you say, no, this is the way. This is the way forward, don't you see? But sometimes these words and these terms have been hijacked, commandeered, propagandized. And so do I agree with you? Am I with you? If we're sitting around a campfire in a safe place like this, it fills me with elation. It like, imagine me being a 7-year-old boy talking about his favorite dinosaur and telling you all about it. Like, that's the energy I have when we talk about bettering society, right? And the evolution of how we communicate and connect with one another and drive in community. I love this conversation, right? So it fills me with joy when I hear matriarchy. And when you reference patriarchy, I know what you're talking about. I know the shackles with which you are speaking, and that doesn't mean all men. It means the men of institution, dominance, empire, control, subversion, propaganda. I understand, but I also know that, like, if my job is a light bringer, a sower of seeds, the revitalizer of communities and inspiration and hope, then I'll use whatever language I need to in whatever group I'm in to communicate that that's what needs to happen. Connect with your neighbor, love yourself, know your shadow, forgive yourself for having it, and see that in your neighbor. And build the world you'd rather live in together. And I don't care what words I have to use, whether it's matriarchy, Ubuntu, or utopia, or egalitarianism. It just depends on where I am and who I'm around. But I'll use whatever words I have to sow the seeds that need to be sowed in order for us to usher in a more communicative, connected, grounded, and localized reality for everyone to live in.
Mm-hmm. And you're right, Emily, as well. The word matriarchy should feel beneficial. But what Tony's saying, and I agree with, is that the word got hijacked a long time ago. And it's also a patriarchal word. It's a word that was created under a patriarchy to try to describe something that the patriarchy never really understood. So again, that goes back to why we say the natural order simultaneously with matriarchy. That's the term that I think I've been using and that I would like to continue to use. Because when you visualize the term natural order, you don't think of those negative connotations that Tony was talking about when you hear patriarchy. Oh, that's women, ruling over men. No, not even at all. But when you hear it as the natural order, or as Tony's saying there in the comments, the way, that creates a whole different visual in that person's mind about what is possible and what can come from that. Basically bypassing that filter, that trigger filter of, that she's just saying women want to roll over men, So I agree. I mean, your language is necessary. Thank you. I did my hair today. The language is definitely necessary. And it's a really good point to talk about, because that is the job of the bridge builder, right? Like, we're not here to impose our ego onto you or our ideas. We are here to show you that something else is possible. And the only way for you to understand that is if I use these words instead of those words, then that's what I'm going to do. Because the purpose is for you to understand it. Do you see? The purpose is not for them to agree full-heartedly with you. The purpose is for them to understand what you're trying to bring to the table. And if you're not using those words, if you're not, and then again, this goes back to that ego conversation. Is your ego healed enough to say, I'm going to stop using this word because I know it's offending them, even though it doesn't offend me. Or I'm going to start using this term, even though I don't want to, only because I know that that's the only way they're going to understand. No, all of that is an unhealed ego. The healed ego says, it doesn't matter. Here's the point. Let's navigate around that point, not the points out there that, make me look bad or make me sound a certain way or whatever. Let's see.
Can I say one thing?
Yeah, go for it.
Again, this is like me telling you about my favorite dinosaur. It's like, it's probably the Allosaurus because it looks like the T-Rex, but sorry. I think the terminology is always what drives me crazy. So again, like I'm a political guy. So whether you're talking capitalism, communism, republics, totalitarianism, all these things, it's like people get exhausted with terms. Like nobody really had a good time on the vocabulary test in elementary school, except for like those kids. There's always a couple who are like aiming for valedictorian even in second grade. But like nobody really likes this. Well, now we say this and now it's this, but well, actually it evolved into this and this. For me, with these conversations, what we're actually talking about is a fundamental shift in human behavior. And we can intellectualize it all we want and put it through the academic papers and have it be peer reviewed. And now it's official terminology and all these things. But at the end of the day, I'm the kind of guy that's like, show me. Make me feel what you're talking about. That's what being a human is all about. Mm-hmm. That's like the unnameable, the untamable, like the unlabelable parts of ourselves are what we feel. And I might tell you that I feel happy, but does that totally encapsulate the physical and spiritual experience I'm having in that moment? No, not even close. It's a pale, hollow shell of the actual experience of what I'm going through. But I tell you, I'm happy. And so when we're talking about shifting society, we've got to show people receipts, man. Make them feel it. Show them the world. We can't just show them another paper on why Marxism might work within this context. Like, just shut up and do it. You can. And human beings have the power. And that's the thing is like, I get frustrated and passionate when I feel like there's so much brilliance and so much energy in the conversations, which I'm glad we're having today. I think they are powerful, necessary, vital components to change. But I think ultimately, as in the corporate world, they would say, what's the CTA? What's the call to action here at the end of the email? We really got to get the viewer to, and that is the call. It's like we have to go build the systems and the connections and the communities that we would rather be in, as difficult as it may be. And some people would say, how could I possibly build community with person who's like XYZ? Or when the institution is like this, right? Or when the government's like this, how could I? And that breeds hopelessness and apathy. Instead, it's like, human beings have overcome the most insane circumstances over and over and over and over again throughout history. And I believe we're being called to do that now. This feels insurmountable. This isn't just patriarchy. I almost feel like that's like an old world definition of what we're dealing with. What we're dealing with is global empire building on a level that we've never seen before. And like, the leaders of Rome would have shit their pants to see what they've constructed now. This is unimaginable and pervasive and huge. And we're asking people to undermine that system, which goes against convenience, status and norms, status quo. It's a revolution of the soul and the mind and the body politic. That's a big deal. And I think fundamentally, we have to be willing to show people. Like, don't tell me what it is. Don't give me another definition. I don't care about the vocabulary test anymore. Like, show me.
Yeah.
Like, what does it actually look like? Can you make me feel what it would feel like to be in this world? And now I'll shut up.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's a bigger conversation, right? Because then it comes down to, how do I do that? How do I get the people together? And I think that's the crux of the biggest issue that we face about any of this. How do we get the people together? Like, for instance, the three women here, myself, Shannon, and Jules, we represent three different time zones. So clearly we're not living in the same community. We have a great online community that we're building, but in the real world, Shannon's got her own journey with her community. I've got my own journey with my community, or, as you would say, what community? Because it's really about how do we get the people to understand that this is what we're trying to do. And I think it comes down to, as well, being really radical about your decisions, especially in those beginning stages. If you're wanting to bring people together, host a potluck like Shannon has done in the past many times. Host a night of dinner where no one's paying for anything. You have yourself and maybe a couple other friends who are willing to do it too, making the meals for everybody. They all come, some people can bring a dish as well. Things like this, I think, are really where that crux is, where it meets the road, is because people are going to feel valued when you invite them to something like that. You don't have to pay a penny. Just come. If you have a $20 donation you want to do, awesome. But we're not asking that from you. We just want you here so that we can be together. And this brings up the conversation about having a third place, right? It's interesting. Starbucks was always priding itself on being this third place when I used to work for that company a long time ago. And nowadays, fast forward to now, they're removing a bunch of the couches, the chairs, and all this stuff from their stores because the people themselves are no longer coming in to use it as a third place. It's drive-throughs now, right? It's the people I need it now, I just gotta go. But it's unfortunate because there are still those people who need that third space, who now don't have it in Starbucks anymore. So you've lost it at the churches. Nobody's going to church anymore. Some people are, obviously, but the church used to be that third place. Third place meaning it's not your home, it's not your place of work. There's a third place that you're allowed to go to just unwind, be yourself, relax, let go, right? We don't have that anymore. Most often than not, we don't have that anymore. Starbucks used to be that for a lot of people. Now, even that's not there anymore. So I think it comes down to, how do we create that? Right, Tony? Now it's bars and pubs. And unfortunately, that's not ideal. Let's make it a kava bar instead, right? Or, whatever. At least that exists, and that's good. But I think it definitely needs to be something that's more productive, something that isn't using or promoting alcoholism to be your escape, because that's not fair or healthy to yourself either. So it's about creating that in your own community as well. Each and every one of us have that opportunity in our own little towns, in our own little villages, to host something, a community something. Something really beautiful that I've started to see happen here in Colorado Springs is a group of women who are hosting every week like a clothing swap type thing, where you go once a month, bring all the stuff that is no longer useful to you. Everyone else is doing that too. And then you just exchange with each other. Like if I don't use the stroller anymore, because Mojave's 4 years old now, her old stroller, I would bring that to it. And there would be a new mom there who needs a stroller. Voila, she didn't have to spend $200 to get a fresh new stroller. She's got one there. And likewise, there could be things there that I would need or whatever. So I love that idea. It's very similar to what we're discussing here. You just need a small purpose. That's it. A small reason to get together and just make it happen. Just create it.
Yeah,
Shannon, you have input? Jules?
Yeah, I wanted to tap in on the language part of it. I think as a career writer and reporter, I can tell you unequivocally there is no such thing as perfect language that can reach everybody. But if you give me 1,000 words, I can tell you a story that will make you feel something. And that's how humans bond, is through shared storytelling, what we're doing right here. So I think the more we tell this shared story of what the matriarchy is, the more that will permeate the culture. Agreed. And model that behavior as we're doing it. I don't think there's any one word that we can all unify around. I don't think that exists.
I completely agree with you as well. I think that it is, again, nuanced. It's a healthy balance of trying to be that, trying to show up in the way that will be received, but also completely agree. There are certain words that you have to use. You have to use it because it is the only language we have so far to describe what we're trying to discuss. So, yeah, I agree. It's definitely like a nuanced situation. Yeah, I agree. So not just females. I agree with you, Sandra. The females need it. We need it. We need it. But so do the men. And I think that that's something that's been missing a long time, is the initiation that boys go into to become men. It used to exist everywhere, and now it doesn't. And that's so unfortunate, because without it, I don't think that boys have the ability to fully grasp what that transition is supposed to look like or feel like or be about, or even take pride in the fact that, hey, I'm a grown man now. This is awesome. You know, it's not there. It's not there. But equally, the same is true for women. We used to also, even though we go through natural initiations, such as our moon time or becoming a mother or becoming a crone in your menopause, right? These are natural initiations. We don't need to have that happen around a crowd because we know it's happening. But it used to, just as much as it did for the men as well. It used to be an honor for that child to become that next level, that next stage in their life. And I think now without it, that's where we're seeing a lot of these issues. So I'm saying this to like maybe put the idea in your brain that maybe that's something that you want to create in your own community. You know, a youth outreach program or something where you're helping the young men to initiate into mandom, hopefully in a good way, right? Not in the patriarchal sense of the way that we're seeing them be raised, but in a new way. That would be a huge impact on culture and society. Same thing for the women, right? If you wanted to create a group for the girls, for the women, for the girls becoming women, right? There's so many options available, and all it really takes is you having the oomph to do it. It's not even having the energy to do it. It's just the oomph, the will, the desire, the hope. Because what I have found more often than not is that when you put something out there into the spirit realm, spirit responds. It doesn't say, ha, I'm laughing at you. Great. Good luck with that. No, you say, Spirit, this is the idea I have to bring forth. I see it. I see the vision of it so clearly, and I don't know how to make it happen, but show me the way. Lead my steps. And I guarantee you, your steps will start to show themselves as you take the next one will appear, and then the next one, and then the next one. So it really is about having the vulnerability to put yourself out there just enough to get it started, because it doesn't need to be perfect. It does not need to be perfect. Let it be messy, because at least then you know what's working, what's not working. You know, and I think that's another big conversation, right, Shannon, is that understanding of like, well, if I don't make this perfect, then it's not going to be worth it. No one's going to watch it. No one's going to care. No one's going to feel invited or blah, blah, blah. And that's just not the case. It's really about just your authenticity coming forward, adding that to that conversation, even if it feels messy. Did you want to add to that?
Yeah, just, you know, I am a huge proponent of community dinners, community cooking, you know, meal trains when people are having babies. This is something that's been a passion project of mine for years. And I think that in probably one of our future, you know, settings or you know, sessions where we're talking, you know, I'd love to dive into what that looks like. It's very easy to host something like that. And you know, I think a lot of what impedes people from taking that risk, right, and not, you have to move past the threshold of safety, comfort, and familiarity to birth something new. And so that first event, that first gathering, the first thing that you do is going to involve a risk factor. However, if, like you're saying, if you do so from a place of saying, I feel moved to create community. I feel moved to build something better than this. Show me the way. Show me the support. Help me be a thread in reweaving the fabric of the human story to a more inclusive, you know, thing. So I would love to talk deeper on how to even do that, how to jump into community cooking, hosting community dinners, getting the leftovers from farmers markets, you can feed 20 people on a week of what's left over from that. And so it's just about all of these threads of people have things, and how can those all be woven together to create something that benefits a larger whole? And that can be, there's so many different ways in which, and that's where that show me piece comes in.
Mhm.
If I believe that I have to be a safe place for people, that includes creating spaces where people can feel safe, people can feel nourished, people can feel like they can show up without having to be performative or any of that stuff. They're just accepted as is in that moment. And as we each create these micro expressions of community, that's how the larger picture emerges.
Mhm. And I agree. And we are going to be talking about more of that, as you know, but they don't know. One of these weeks coming up here soon, that is going to be our discussion is, hold on, let me pull myself back up here again. That is going to be one of our discussions is how do we do it? What are the steps? And Shannon will be sharing a whole lot more about that because she is doing it. She's doing it in her own community already. So she has a great way of laying it all out to say, if this is an idea that you want to start doing in your own community, I'm going to show you how to do it step by step. So I'm excited for that conversation as well. That's going to be coming up in the next few weeks. I'll have to check my notes. I'm not sure if that's next week
Yeah, I
or
don't remember what.
I don't either.
I can't bit still.
Is it next?
Yeah.
We'll have to check. But yeah, I'm excited for that as well. It's going to be lots of fun. So yeah, I would say this pretty much sums up today's discussion, unless you guys have any last minute things you want to say.
I'm good. That's
including me.
Yeah, thanks for letting me hang out, even though I can barely talk and can't be on camera.
It's all good. I'm glad you were here. And Tony, thanks for showing up today as well. All right, you guys, we love you all very much. Thank you for joining us. This will be live or available on my YouTube in like the next couple hours or so. It just takes a few to download. So if you missed any parts of this, you can go on my YouTube, same screen name, Mojavian Wolf. All the previous ones we've done so far are also there. So if you've missed any of those, you can go back and watch those as well. But with that being said, thank you. Thank you, everybody. What a good conversation today.
Toodaloo, kangaroo.
All right. Love you.